We all know that Luz Noceda got her Good Witch Azura novel from her father, Manny Noceda, before he passed, but have you ever wondered why? I've got a few theories, and some of them actually explain why us fellow weirdos love the Owl House so much. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, I want to get all of my wild theories out of the way as soon as possible, so let's just acknowledge the fact that through all of Season 3 I was waiting for a time skip where Lumity time travels to visit Manny in the hospital before he passes, and then Manny gets to meet Luz and Amity and see how his daughter has grown, and Luz gets to tell Manny about all of her adventures and how much she's grown and how much the book has helped her, and then Manny's like, wait, what book are you talking about? So Luz and Amity bring out the Good Witch Azura book and they tell him all about it, and then Manny's like, I don't know what you're talking about. What kind of book is that? I mean, that sounds amazing. I'm so glad that it's helped you, but what do you mean I gave it to you? And then Luz and Amity realize, oh my gosh, we're the ones who give it to Manny to give it to Luz. But then the tides are coming in, so Luz and Amity have to step back through the time portal to get back to their time again. And as they're stepping through hand in hand, Luz looks back at her dad and Manny's looking at her with such pride. So there's of course some tears happening, and he's just so happy to see that his little girl, is okay. And then there's a knock at the hospital door and we see little tiny Luz and a younger Camila, and they're like, hey, and so they're doing their family stuff, and Manny gets to give little Luz the little book, the Good Witch Azura book, for the very first time, and he tells her how proud he is of her and how he knows that she'll grow up to be such an amazing good witch with so many friends, and she'll be amazing and she'll be so powerful and brave, and it'll be full. Ow, I just popped my thumb really weird. I'm just writing fan fiction at this point. Anyways, let's get back to the reasons that I actually did a lot of research for and spent a lot of time thinking about, because that's what this video is actually about. Headcanons aside, I think the first reason why Manny would have given it to Luz is just escapism. Luz was going through some hard stuff even before the season 1 pilot began. I mean, she had moved to a new town, lost all of her friends, was trying to find new friends while in middle school, which is notorious for being hard to make friends. Her dad had health problems, and he might have already known that he was dying, so all of that happened at the same time as Luz was just trying to make good grades to please her parents. That's a lot to put on anybody, much less a little kid. Knowing how Manny and Camila bonded over Cosmic Frontier, being nerds themselves, I would imagine that he wanted to provide Luz with that same sense of escapism that helped him throughout his life. Speaking of the Noceda nerds, it is canonical that when they are interested in something, they go full force. I'm looking at you, Cosmic Frontier Closet. This leads me to a little fun fact about special interests. Luz and Camila are both neurodivergent. Luz was confirmed as such in an interview a few years back, and Camila has confirmed in season 3, I think for the future, that Luz gets her weirdness or neurodivergentness from Camila, so it's not much of a stretch to assume that the Cosmic Frontier and Good Witch Azura interests are special interests. And no, I'm not just saying oh, they're very special to them, that's why they're a special interest. I mean, they are very special to them, but they're incredibly regulating as well as interesting to the point of obsession. As someone who is neurodivergent myself and tutors someone who is neurodivergent as well, I can attest to the incredible power that special interests have on neurodivergent brains. I can be spiraling about something in therapy and my therapist can just ask me a question about the Owl House, and within minutes I am grounded and no longer spiraling. Same thing happens with tutoring. If I notice that my student is getting dysregulated at all, I make sure that we take a break to talk about the special interests that my student has for a little bit, and then without fail, we are always able to return to the homework that we're supposed to do with not only a clearer mind, but a better attitude and hope about it, because it's just that regulating to talk about and engage in special interests. No matter what your neurotype is, whether you're neurodivergent or not, it is incredibly helpful and healthy to get a break from overwhelming emotions. It's why so many of us love fantasy books, why so many of us have embraced the Owl House. Half of the battle with anxiety spirals is just interrupting the thought spiral. Leading me to number 2, one of the ways that people might try to cope with anxiety: predestination. Now, I've already made a video about how the concept of predestination was intrinsically comforting to Luz during a really challenging time. And this reason honestly banks on the theory that Manny actually read the Good Witch Azura before gifting it to Luz, which he may or may not have. But the Good Witch Azura novel taught Luz that Manny's passing was not Luz's fault, and there wasn't anything that she could have done differently. When somebody passes, a really common reaction to it is a sense of responsibility or guilt. Like, oh, if I had done this or that, then something might have been better. Or if there was absolutely nothing that could be done about the death, there's a sense of guilt that you didn't spend enough time with the person before they died. I know when I lost a friend, I felt like if I had only taken her out to lunch, I could have prevented the thing. If I had only been a little bit more stubborn when she said, no, I'm fine, that Sunday, I could have prevented her from dying. And maybe, but there's nothing you can do right now to change what happened in the past. And staying in that past is really dangerous because it makes you blind to the things happening in the present, both good and bad. Granted, there are pieces of grief where you do revisit the past and revisit the things that happen, and I'm eating hair as I'm talking, but it's not healthy to stay there extended times. I imagine that Manny wanted Luz to be able to live in the present and not be stuck in the past. Of course, remembering all of the times that she had with him, being able to live in the present knowing that he loved her. The Good Witch Azura novel also allowed Luz to kind of skip to the good part, if you will, by reading Azura's story and seeing how difficult situations can be used for good. Being able to hold two seemingly contradictory concepts at the same time, for example, good and bad, painful and pleasant, sweet and bitter, that's a really difficult thing. Being able to read about it allowed Luz to observe how there is both good and bad, how in the worst points of your life, good can still be planted and blossom later in life. And I think we have plenty of evidence that Luz learns this lesson from Azura because she constantly sees the good amidst a whole wave of bad. I mean, she did befriend Amity after all. The last thing I want to mention about predestination and its positive effects on Luz from the Good Witch Azura is the fact that believing there is a future is an integral part in making good decisions that benefit you in the future. When you are young and or mentally ill, there is this sense of time myopia, future myopia, where you have this sense of a foreshortened future, like, oh, everybody else can plan for the future, but I'm not gonna make it. It doesn't always have to be like that objectively bleak, but it could just be like, I literally cannot conceptualize me existing 2 months from now. That's just not something I can think about. For example, in 2021, I suffered a brain injury that made it impossible for me to succeed in college at all. I couldn't even live independently. So I moved back home, and when I first moved back home, everyone was asking me what my plans were and when I would return, and I could only think about right then and there, okay, I need to feel better right now. I've been slowly but surely improving in my health and overall well-being and independence and whatnot, but even 6 months ago, I still wasn't able to really conceptualize 2024 as something I would be present for. I wasn't suicidal, whether passive or active, I just literally could not conceptualize what 2024 might look like. Saving money was really hard, making plans to eat lunch with people was really hard, making plans for a 2-week trip out of state was very dysregulating for me because people were like, oh hey, what do you want to do on the trip? And I'm like, play it by ear? And they're like, no, you gotta plan it because you like plans. You get anxious if you don't have plans. We're gonna plan this. And I'm like, planning makes me anxious. Honestly, I think forcing myself to think about the future and forcing myself to think about a future in which I would be a part of has been really helpful in me conquering time myopia. It's only been in the past couple of days that I've been able to really consider, okay, I think I do want to go back to college. I'm definitely not ready right now, and I am not even sure if I will be in 2024, but I'm able to make specific plans towards returning. I know when I go up for my checkup in 6 months with my general practitioner, I need her to write a return to college thing. Okay, I don't have all of the specifics, but you get the idea. I'm able to conceptualize the future, and I'm 23. That is 2 years away from this brain being fully developed. I don't know what life is gonna be like when that happens, but I'll let you know. And I think that Manny knew that if Luz had somebody to look up to and to dream about and to aspire after, it would be a lot easier to dream about a future that she was a part of than if she didn't have anybody at all. Which leads me to reason number 3 why I think Manny Noceda gifted Luz the Good Witch Azura book. Azura was Luz's role model, which allowed Camila some time and privacy to grieve Manny. Now, Camila was definitely Luz's lifeline. She's her mom, she is a caring individual, and she is a kick-butt individual. But I do think that Manny was trying to provide for both Camila and Luz in his absence. Trauma can cause someone to question identity, their purpose in life, the general goodness in people, and the Good Witch Azura is literally about finding good in a stereotypically negative connotation of a witch. Let me just set that over there so I don't knock it over. Eda is a subversion of the old hag witch trope, and I think Azura functions on the same subversion. She is a good witch. There are values of kindness, empathy, and hope in the Good Witch Azura, and those are all things for Luz to aspire after. Azura also modeled all sorts of relationships. How to make friends to begin with, how to befriend your enemy like Hecate, how to deal with betrayal from Lucy. Because neurodivergent brains communicate and interact with the world in a way that differs or diverges from the typical expectations, it's inherently hard for neurodivergent people to make friends and maintain relationships. Trauma adds to that, making it hard to make friends and keep friends. My dad raised me with such unconditional love and respect to the point where he made sure that I knew that if somebody treated me poorly, it was not my fault, but theirs. He showed me how I should be treated, and I think Manny wanted to do the same for his little girl, to teach her how loved she is, and how she should be respected, and how she should stand up for herself. And so he did the next best thing he could think of, and gave her a role model to teach her that. Reason number 4 is because it provides a sense of connection between Luz and, well, Manny, because it was a gift from him, between Luz and Manny and Camila, because they're all huge nerds, and between Luz and, well, Luz. The Owl House show does not shy away from the parallels between the Good Witch Azura and Luz's experience in the Owl House show. While it's difficult to decide whether Luz is just mirroring what she saw in Azura, or if Manny saw Luz in Azura, or both, or neither, just having someone and something to connect to and see yourself in represented is critical. Good representation is essential. If you're different, but you see no one else who is different like you, there's inevitably going to be the sense that you are broken because you don't fit in with everybody else. You are not like anybody else, and no matter how hard you try, you're not like them, so of course you must be broken. No, you're just different. But if you don't know anybody else who's different, you're likely not going to come to that conclusion. Luz stuck out like a sore thumb in the human realm. She didn't belong. She had a bunch of weird, quirky antics that nobody understood. But the Good Witch Azura gave her hope that maybe there was a place that was magical where she would fit in. And then she found Eda and King in the Boiling Isles, and she met Willow and Gus and Amity and all of her other friends, and she realized that being weird is awesome. The fifth reason why Manny might have given Luz the Good Witch Azura is education. Trauma can cause memory loss and a decreased ability to concentrate. Throw in some neurodivergence and some fresh grief to distract Luz, and oh my gosh, school and just existing is going to be rough for her, on top of all of the other things I mentioned at the beginning of this video. However, reading daily just for 10 minutes is a proven tactic to not only improve your memory, but to improve your concentration. The Good Witch Azura novel was exactly what Luz needed. It gave her hope, it gave her a place to feel safe when everything sucked in the real world, someone to look up to and aspire after, a sense of connection despite losing her dad, and it made certain aspects of education accessible to Luz's interest-driven brain. And while I don't think that Manny could have ever predicted the events of Luz's life, the Good Witch Azura was a gateway for Luz meeting, connecting with, and bonding with a whole new world of community, much like the Owl House has been for me as I've created videos on this channel. Which leads me to an important note. I'm going to be branching out from the Owl House as a topic, not abandoning it, but exploring other shows and books to see what beauty lies in other content. I've got Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and She-Ra on my to-watch list. I also want to dip my toes into book and movie content like the Riordan Universe and the Nimona movie, both of which I love very, very dearly. I'm still always going to be a weirdo, and the Owl House will always have a special place in my heart. I'm still going to be making Owl House content, but I've had several prompts from several sources encouraging me to grow and branch out and try and flourish outside of my comfort zone. So I'm going to be like Luz and explore my own metaphorical boiling isles with the Good Witch Azura book, or the Owl House, in hand. And I'm going to see who else I can meet and what else I can learn, because I just think that's what my next step is supposed to be. Until then, please take care of yourselves, okay? I love you. Bye.